Well, good evening, everybody. Check test, check test. 1 2 1 2. See if the audio's working good. Looks like it is. Well, good evening, everybody. All right, yeah, audio sounds great. Yeah, good stuff. I don't sound so good, but the audio sounds fine. How's everybody tonight? Hope you had a great couple weeks off. I didn't, frankly. What I thought was RSV, I have since found out was probably COVID. About 3 weeks ago, last Friday, we went to bingo at the Elks Lodge. I've been doing that most of the winter, just to get out of the house and hang out with friends and, have a few cocktails and that kind of stuff. And I was chatting with with a friend of mine that was there, and he told me that 3 other people that were there for bingo that night ended up with the nasty COVID coronavirus crap. And frankly, I still have a little touch of it. I never tested positive. I mean, I went and bought like 2 sets of these at-home tests. And I never did test positive, but it sure seems like that's probably what I had. And I got to be honest with you, I'm pretty upset. I had worked really hard to avoid that crud. And now I know why, because it's pretty cruddy. I mean, I didn't really feel deathly sick, but I definitely spent quite a few days on the couch, not feeling well. And then, of course, last week, I had very little voice. You should have heard me Monday. I recorded last week's, hey, I'm not going to make it tonight video early Tuesday morning. And then, but Monday, I had no voice at all. I'm still a little gravelly now and still have a bit of a cough. So, anyway, let's run over and see who all's in tonight so far. We got Robert and Gary, Tim. Eric Myers is in. Rusty Guerrera asked a question, but I never did hear back from him when I asked him what he meant. So there may not be a question there. Kevin Coop's in from Missouri. Let's see. Vincent RV Life. Sounds like they're back home in North Carolina. George, a.k.a. Dad, said they had lots of sun and early wind. The exercise pool is good. Judy White's in from New Hampshire. Hi, Judy. So happy to have you here tonight. RV Living Life is there. He said, hang in there. COVID took me down pretty hard a few years ago. This will pass. I'll come back. Yeah, actually I feel a lot better than I have for a couple weeks. But I still am tired. My sleep schedule is totally screwed up. Mostly because I probably spent too much time sleeping on the couch. And so my sleep schedule is already crap. But anyway, I didn't have a prepared question tonight because, frankly, I just hadn't felt well enough to prepare anything. Thank you. But I see Rusty's back. Hi, Rusty. So you asked about pipe threads. Help me. What do you want to know? How can I help you with that? And while we're waiting for his response, let's just run over here and... Okay, black plastic, is it different than white plastic on threads? Well, the plastic itself is different, Rusty. Black is ABS, and white is usually PVC. Usually black is used for drain lines, for gray water, black water, and then the white, of course, is... sometimes white will be used for gray water as well, and then sometimes PVC is also used for water lines. So let's see. It is different. The threads are different, but are you asking, can you put the two together? In other words, can you thread white into black? Is that your question? Question mark. I have another sort of prepared question for the week, but it was something that came up. I don't know. It was A couple of weeks ago, I was having a phone conversation with a friend of mine, one of them that ended up with COVID, because we were both down, and he works, and so he wasn't working. And I asked him, I says, "Where were you when we landed on the moon?" He said, "I wasn't even born yet. So where were you when we landed on the moon the first time?" 1969. I remember I was sitting with my parents in front of the TV in our house in eastern Idaho, and was quite fascinated. I also remember when was it the what was the rover that landed on Mars? The first one that landed and sent video back. I remember watching that too, and that was in Island Park at a friend of mine's cabin. Okay, Rusty came in. Hi, Tom. Nice to have you here. Eric's in. Hi, Eric. I thought I saw you in there earlier. Rusty says he has I have black in a water manifold to distribute fresh water, not sewer. Okay, that's fine. So is that a PEX manifold? Is that what the manifold was intended for? Because I know that they usually use those manifolds in text or in PEX. He says his trailer is an Alliance 310RL, and they have a distribution area called a NAIT, N-A-I-T. Okay. If you're asking if if you can put the two thread types together, yeah, it shouldn't matter at all. I guess that's what you're asking. I don't know for sure, but yeah, if you'll clarify that. But yeah, the thread types don't make any difference. You should be able to use the two thread types together. RV Living Life says he was with his brother and parents at home. Yeah, so was I. My brother was there with me too. No worries, Rusty. So slow to type. We'll wait. We're not going anywhere. We're here for a whole hour. George, a.k.a. Dad, said in '69 he was working his butt off to support his wife and child while acquiring his associate's degree. Interesting. Okay. Oh, Nautilus panel. Okay, no worries. Yeah, so let me just do a real quick. Let me just take a quick look here, and if I can spell it right. Just checking here. Let's make sure there's. We'll just do a quick. As far as I can tell, there should be nothing. There's nothing here that indicates that you should be concerned with it in any way or shape or form. The only thing, the black pipe is like a brass pipe thread, so that sounds a little bit like PEX, but it doesn't really matter. The only thing I would recommend is that you use pipe tape, Teflon tape on the threads. Before you put it together. That'll just help make sure they don't leak. But yeah, hi Roundtown Scouter in from Carlsbad. So glad to see you here tonight. Thanks, John, for your thoughts. Oh, I see. Okay, I get it. Rusty goes on. He says he's replacing the plastic PEX fittings with brass, as he has pressure leaks, and his reading tells me that PEX to brass is a better seal. True? Well, yeah, I think they're more rigid. All right, and higher quality, probably less likely to seal. But the thing about PEX is when you're putting it together, you really want to make sure that when you're putting the pipe into the fitting that you hear this click. You'll physically hear a click when it goes together properly, and that is the sign that there's a little Teflon ring. Gosh, I could run downstairs and get a PEX fitting, but I won't. There's a little ring in there, Teflon, that helps with the seal, and that's what that click is when that pushes in so far, it goes past and clicks back out and makes the pipe sealed. Also, that little Teflon ring, if you have the right tool, you can push down on that ring and it will release the fitting and it will come apart. So, that's a good point, RV Living Life, and we'll chat about that in just a second. Okay, so I think the brass is better, but you know, manufacturers use the plastic pieces because they're a third the cost versus the brass ones. At least that's been my experience. But when I have bought them and I've used a bit of PEX, the PEX fittings, the copper, what they call gator. What do they call those gator? Help me out, guys. The PEX pipe fittings. You get them at Home Depot, but they have a specific name, gator something or something like that. I've always bought the brass ones, and so far, I mean, I've got 3 or 4 valves, well, 3 valves, a couple elbows, a union or 2 here or there, all with PEX made of, using the PEX click lock type fittings, and they have all been solid. But that's on copper pipe as well, and they'll do copper and PEX. But RV Living Life made a good point. You can't glue the white and or black PVC or ABS. The glues are different, so you can't glue those 2 types of pipe. So you couldn't put a white fitting on a black pipe or a black fitting on a white pipe. But that's only if you're gluing. I suspect that your PEX pipe inside of the camper is probably clear, or it could be white and or blue. But that'll be the real PEX pipe, and the brass fittings should work just fine. I don't have the absolute ability to say yes, they're better, they don't leak. But like I said, as far as I know, and for what I've used them here at my house, and I used them in the RV when I put the new fridge in, I used a PEX valve on a piece of PEX pipe and a T to provide for the ice maker in the new electric 110 fridge that I put in, residential fridge. Shark bite, thanks George. Yep, Judy got it, Kevin got it. Excellent. Rusty, he says, he has the other kind of fittings like a hose clamp. They true up and lock nicely. Yeah, and those are good too. I mean, I don't know that the hose clamps, I mean, the PEX pipe is pretty rigid, and you'd have to put a pretty good amount of torque on it. I've seen them with hose clamps, no question about it. But if I was going to redo it, and I didn't want to use hose clamps, then I would go with the shark bite fittings like we were chatting about. Hi, Two Feathers. Good to see you. Excuse me. Told you I had still a bit of a cough. Anybody else have any experience using the shark bite or PEX in your RV? Tim mentions plastic, especially PEX, is less likely to split if the water freezes. You're absolutely correct. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I was when I moved to Denver, Colorado, I lived in my RV for about 4 months in the winter. And over Thanksgiving, it was 22 below, and my furnace quit working. But there's in my Newmar Dutch Star, it had all PEX fittings. And I did freeze the toilet valve, so I had to replace the little toilet valve. But other than that, I froze nothing. So I got really lucky. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like a lot of folks do, to see a man about a horse that was making noise, and realized that it was like 24 degrees inside the coach. So the furnace had been off most of the night. And what had happened, just as a side, I had put a new propane tank on, and it must have had a little bit of moisture in it. And you know, as moisture hits the expansion valve, it when gas hits the expansion valve, if it contains moisture, when that gas expands, it cools off a lot, and it probably just froze up. I actually ended up wrapping the pressure regulator with a heat pad I had and leaving it on for about 30 minutes, and that was enough to warm up the regulator and get the furnace to run again. Kevin Coop says, gator bite. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, around town, yes. A shark bite. It seems sprinkler white fittings are more coarse than black or brass threads. Yeah, I think they are. I mean, are you mean that the barbs on the pipe are a bit spread out more? And that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true. And the spacing of those barbs on the fittings like that, for like PVC you would find in a sprinkler system, they're spaced out because when you seal up those pipes, you use something called an Otkin clamp. And so that is a band that's a certain width. And the general idea with that is if you get lucky, you can get that and squeeze it down. And it's not on a ridge. It's not on one of the ribs. It's out away from it. And but yeah, the ribs are spaced differently. The other thing too, yeah, Tim, that's right. PEX uses a crimp style clamp if you're clamping it, and it does require a special tool. There's also the PEX, what they call the cross-linked PEX. What's it called? But it's the kind that you put the tool inside the pipe, and you pump it up hydraulically, and then it stretches the pipe out, the PEX out itself. You put it over the fitting, and then the natural tendency of the pipe, once it's stretched out, is to go back to its original shape, which locks it down onto the fitting. And then you put a little ring on it and crimp that down. That's a pretty solid fitting, and they use that in a lot of commercial and a lot of homes nowadays that are, plumbed with PEX. Will have that type of fitting. Joni, who has got a heck of a project. In fact, Joni, one of these days, maybe next week, I had to pull together the photos you sent me and share it with folks on the project you're working on. You also have a bit of you do some YouTube stuff too, don't you, Joni? I mean, I think I went out and watched a couple of videos when you first joined up with the channel. Have you got more? I have honestly not been on YouTube a lot because I just haven't been feeling well. And so I've been mostly on the couch a lot. Oh, thank you, Brianna Applegate, for checking in and saying, yeah, I am feeling much better. There you go. Okay, I knew we had this discussion probably 6 months ago. We were talking about PEX, and Kevin got it straightened out here. The stretch type is PEX A. The clamp type is PEX B. I think what you're going to find in most RVs is PEX B. Now, somebody will say I'm wrong, and that's quite right. I mean, I'm the first one to admit I'm wrong sometimes. But thank you, Kevin. Tom Downey says, tell me how to repair a Bussmann circuit box. I have an open circuit in my starter crane circuit. What box do you have, Tom? I would need to take a look at a schematic or some kind of a drawing to understand what's going on. Is it a contactor? Does it have contacts in it? Question mark. You're welcome, Rusty. I hope we answered your questions. And Tom says, and it is in the box itself. And also, Tom, is it potted? In other words, is it filled with some kind of a silicone or epoxy? Joni Portwood, she said, I sold the really old truck camper and kept the fiberglass one. Good, that's what I would do. Yeah, I think that's what I ended up settling on. I couldn't make up my mind. Joni and I had a conversation, I guess it's been a couple months ago, and she'd sent me some pictures and asked some questions on the chat, and I asked her to send some photos and of some projects she was considering. And she had a really old truck camper, and then she had a fiberglass one, and I recommended she go with the fiberglass one. In fact, I'd mentioned this before, and maybe we'll chat about that a bit. If you guys have some ideas about what would be a fun project to work on next, as I've mentioned in the past, and there's going to be a vlog type video coming up this week, but I plan to have the truck camper done by Memorial Day. And weather and water fitting, I'll probably get out and try to do some fishing, or at least get out for an overnighter. But that said, I'm starting to think about my next project. Sorry about that. And so I'm open to any suggestions as to what you'd like to see me work on. I'm thinking about maybe a small trailer, an older trailer, maybe like a under 20 footer. I think that might be fun. I'm also have considered an Airstream, finding an older Airstream and doing a restoration on that. I've seen some videos online of that process, and it looks pretty interesting and challenging, and it looks like you'd learn some new skills, which is what I'm always up for. Oh, okay. Dorothy, I'll get to your question in just a second. Yeah, good. No, Tom says, no, it's riveted. The busman has connections like cannon plugs. Okay. Well, you can just drill the rivets out and replace them. That way you can take the switch apart. But if I knew what model it was, then I'd probably be able to give you a better idea of what it, how it would, how to fix it, or how to, get into it. Okay, Dorothy Curtis has a question. She says, we have a fifth wheel and have it parked at a permanent site for now by the beach in Texas. Is there any other hose options instead of those stinking slinking? So darn cumbersome and heavy when emptying. Well, yes, Dorothy, but you're never going to get away from a stinky hose, at least from the sewer side of it. You could go with a macerator, okay, which is a device that you put on the outside. You attach it like where your sewer hose goes, and then you can use a much smaller hose. I've seen some that actually use like water hoses. But that's a lot of expense. You're probably looking at $400 or $500. And all that does is the macerator just grinds what I like to call large particulate matter, wink, wink, that comes out of the holding tank, and so that it could go down a smaller hose. What I would recommend is that you give me another 2 to 3 weeks, and I have got a brand new video in the process of being produced. I was just about ready to start recording when all of this, COVID, SHIT hit. And so now that my voice is back and I'm starting to feel better, I'll probably get the audio, video stand-up stuff recorded and hopefully get it out in the next couple weeks. Fingers crossed. But In that, do you? Let me ask you this, Dorothy. When you dump your tanks, do you dump your black tank and then dump your gray tank? The general idea is that the gray tank isn't as nasty, and that dumping the gray tank after the black tank helps wash the hose out. The other thing is that if you were to flush your holding tanks, your holding tank, especially your black tank, with a fair amount of water, like I'm going to recommend in the video I've got coming out, that will help flush that hose out. But yeah, there's not much you can do to get away from them. They're nasty, they're stinky. But if you're on a permanent site, you might look around and ask your neighbors. I have seen that on some permanent sites. This is highly dependent upon the park and where it's at. So I'm just telling you this is what I've seen. Is that people will actually use PVC, and they'll hook a PVC pipe up from their RV to the sewer dump permanently. Now, let me tell you something right now. Do not, if you did something like that, never just open the valves to your tanks and let them drain, especially the black tank. You're setting yourself up for a lot of heartburn. A year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now, I had a question come in from a gal down in Arizona who'd bought a park model. If you don't know what a park model is, briefly, in RV parks, a lot of times where they have permanent or seasonal type places, especially like in Arizona where there's a lot of snowbirds that come down from November to March or April. They'll have park models there, and the idea is that it's on a semi-permanent foundation. But she had bought one, and the old owner had just left the valves open, and she couldn't get the holding tanks to stop smelling. And ultimately, it cost her over $7,000 because she had to have an RV technician come out, and it took her 3 weeks to find one that would do this job and remove and replace the black and the gray tank, because they were so gunked up that there was just nothing else she could do. She couldn't find anybody. Now, there's in a lot of major metropolitan areas, like if this woman was, clear up around, I want to say Wickiup or something like that. So she was way out there in Arizona, not near a major area. But in a lot of major metropolitan areas, especially like I know in Vegas, they have these guys with pressure washers that'll come out and pressure wash your tanks and your lines. And I saw a guy that was parked next to me that had a fellow come in from, this was in Las Vegas several years ago. He came in and pressure washed his tank. I think that's, probably not a bad idea if your tanks are bad. But if you just follow some of the advice I give in the video that I've got coming up, or videos I have out on holding tank maintenance, you'll never get in that situation. And if you have a little time and patience, it's easy enough to get things cleared up and working properly. All right, let's see here. All right. Joni says she has a 1966 travel trailer, 13.5-foot body. Yeah, I thought I saw one in some of the pictures you sent me, Joni, when we were chatting about the projects. So that's cool. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Something in that range that's not terribly rusty, frame-wise. I don't want to have to do a lot of major frame construction and stuff like that, if I can. RV Living Life. I think PEX is rated at 100 PSI. I don't trust it that high, but 55 in the rig is great. My pump is 55, and I set the regulator to 55. No worries. Yeah, I think that most, and it depends on the individual rigs. You need to refer to your owner's manual. But 60 PSI was what Newmar recommended as the maximum. And I actually ran 50. On my pressure regulator, I had it turned down to 50, and I think my pump probably did 55. That sounds pretty normal. But yeah, I would never go over 60 with PEX. Personally, if you're going to get into that high pressure, you want to use copper, soldered, or galvanized. In my humble opinion. Dorothy laughs. Thanks. You're welcome, Dorothy. Yeah. I'm sorry, there's just, they don't call them stinky slinkies for nothing. RV Living Life, he installed a macerator, a white glove sewer pump. Yeah, that's pretty cool. How do you, I mean, what kind of a hose do you use with that, RV Living Life? Tom Downey says the box is glued mold together. So we're talking about, sounds like a relay box, a busman relay box. If it's potted or glued in any way, you're not going to get it apart, Tom. You might as well just replace it. I hate to tell you that, but I mean, and I had the same, I didn't understand Canon connection, but I was not too concerned about that. I was more concerned about maybe getting into the actual box itself. But yeah, if it's glued, you're done. There's just no way to get into them that I know of. Dorothy says, yeah, I've seen those. Okay, if we do that option, PVC pipe, we keep closed until dump time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that way you don't have the stinky slinky. And if you're a weekender and that's what you have, and it's allowable in the RV park and in the municipality where you're at, then go for it. Because, but yeah, don't ever just run with the valves open. It's not a matter of if you will have trouble, it's a matter of when you will have trouble. Oh, Tom Downey says the box includes his fuses, relays, all wired together. Yeah, well, you say you have an open. Have you been able to track it down and figure out if it's wiring or is it a connection? Something get nasty. Crane pump or a crane jack. Is that what you called it? Crank jack. Let me go back here. Tom, tell me how to repair a busman circuit box. I have an open circuit in my starter crank circuit. Yeah, I think you're probably going to just have to replace that. But I don't know. If you could get the model number, we might be able to figure out if you can get it apart. But if it's glued or potted, sealed in any way, there is no way to get into the circuitry inside of it itself. It's a throwaway replace, unfortunately. Yeah, Dorothy, it should be out. The new version should be out, I would guess, right around the 1st of May, if everything goes like I hope. Joni Portwood, she says she's trying to decide if it would be better to full-time in a truck camper or a small trailer. Well, Joni, I think here's what my takeaway on it. And I've watched several truck camper full-timers on the tubes. The one I would recommend is Catherine Gregory. She lived in a truck camper for 3 years and then just traded up to, I think, a 19-foot travel trailer. Don't remember the manufacturer right off the top of my head. So it could be done. You can definitely live in a truck camper full time. But my experience was more space. If you're by yourself, it's probably okay. If you're in a truck camper, 2 people full time in a truck camper, you better be damn good friends. Because there is no privacy in a truck camper. At least in a trailer or a Class A or a Class C. You can go sit in the bedroom and pout if that's what you're inclined to do. I mean, we're just talking real life here. There is no way you can do that in a truck camper. Okay, RV Living Life says he used a Santicon 600 for something like that. Did a video a few years ago on it. Never need to use gloves. Cool. RV Living Life, I get so much grief because of my dump sequences in my black tank maintenance videos and not wearing gloves. First thing is, I washed my hands with soap and water when I'm done, okay? The second thing is, when you had kids, did you push or did you throw on a pair of gloves every time you had to change a ditty diaper? It's you're kind of dealing with poo. Now everybody has different sensibilities about poo. There's a lot of poo phobia out there. Wear gloves if you're so inclined, and yes, it's probably more sanitary. The problem with wearing gloves is that if you don't know how to take them off properly, then you're not saving yourself any trouble. Here's a scenario. Let's say you put your gloves on, you go do your sewer lines. And then when you go to take your gloves off, you just grab it by the fingers and you pull it off, and then you got an ungloved hand and you come over here and you pull this one off. Well, this hand just got poop on it. All right, there's a proper way to remove gloves, which is you grab it underneath and on top and you peel it off, and you peel it off, and then you throw them away, and that way you haven't touched any of the exterior surface of the glove. Well, that's something that you receive training in if you've been in medical, or like I worked in the nuclear industry, and so I would have to do, where, rad worker protection, which is like Tyvek suits and all kinds of stuff with gloves and masks and all kinds of things. And then we had to go through all kinds of training to don, what they call don, which is put on the gloves and then remove them properly. So a lot of people say they want to use gloves, but if you don't know the proper way to remove the glove, then you're not saving yourself anything, because you're probably going to get poop on your hand anyway. So, but yeah, I wash my hands. Let's be honest about it. But yeah, I get a lot of grief for that, for sure. Okay, I will. Oh yeah, that. By the way, you did send me your link, and I'm going to go get that here and share that tonight, because RV Living Life does have an RV, or does have a channel. I think, if I remember correctly, oh geez, where did I put that? Man, my head is so full of, cobwebs right now. It's really funny. Hang on here, I'm looking for it. There you are, standing there with your beautiful Dutch Star. Is that a Dutch Star? It's definitely a Spartan chassis. Let's see here. Okay, so go over and give these guys a sub here real quick if you're on the stream tonight. They'd surely appreciate that. Oh, and by the way, Gary also had sent me something beautiful. He's checking in from South Mountain, or not South Mountain, from Saddle Mountain down in Arizona. Let me get all my technology in order here, and let's go here. And so Gary sent this photo just before the stream started tonight. That's Saddle Mountain. That's west of Phoenix. Beautiful spot. I've been there many times myself. Yeah, so that's where Gary is tonight. I'm always happy to share photos of your rigs too. So, if you want to send me photos, pictures of your rig, and stuff like that, I'm always happy to share that with the audience here on YouTube. So feel free to do that if you are so inclined. Sorry, I'm getting everything put back together here. Back over to the chat window. Oh, by the way, before I forget, we're half past, and I usually do the selfish, shameless plug, which is if you like the video, please give me that thumbs up. Those really count for something. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Visit the channel's affiliate links in the description for the video. That's Amazon, RecPro, Renogy. Remember, as an affiliate, I get a small commission, but you pay the same price, except in the case of Renogy and RecPro, where you're actually getting a discount. I've been working really hard since I didn't have much of a voice, but still felt pretty good enough to work a couple hours a day. So I've been working really hard on my website over at trbullen.com. A quick visit over there, poke around. You might find something you might like over there. Lots of articles over there that aren't here on YouTube that eventually will make it over here as far as videos. But the way I kind of do things is I put an article up, and depending upon the interest in it, then I'll make a video around it if it's, if I get enough comments and people like it enough. So thanks a lot. Anyway, and of course your questions are always welcome here. If you're shy and you don't want to chat through the window, or you might be on a phone. Sometimes I know some Android phones have a problem in chat on the live streams. You can always drop me an email, trbowlin, BOWLIN, @gmail.com. And I usually will get back to you within 24 hours unless unless I'm out fishing and out of cell range. But I try to be pretty responsive to folks. I hate it when I leave a comment and I never hear back from them. So I try to be pretty responsive. Okay, Scott Bohannon. Hi, Scott. There's a new one there, and I'm so happy to see you. Oh, I missed Two Feathers' question. I got to write back. Okay, Scott, we'll get to your comment here in a minute. Okay. Kevin sent us a picture of a box that might be Tom, what Tom has got. Let's... can't get a very good picture of it, but let me swap screens here real quick. I think maybe yeah, so come over like this. I know it's not a very big picture, but that's all the bigger it is on the Zon. Is that what you got, Tom? Something like that? Kevin sent that over. See, appreciate you guys, going out and researching stuff so I can pay attention to the stream. Okay. Let me just scroll back here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Joni, okay, Joni is trying to decide. Okay, we chatted about that briefly. Okay, RV Live. If you Google white glove sewer dump, you will find the video. Okay, the exit hose is 1.5 inches, so about a third the size of a standard Stinky Slinky, which is 4 inches. Two Feathers asks, am I considering something I can tow with my truck? Yes. Now, actually, again, I plan on keeping the truck camper. I can't keep a truck camper and a restored towable. I just don't have space for it, and I don't want to have to rent space in a storage lot or anything like that. So if I do a towable, then I will be selling that. But I probably will keep the truck camper. Now, that's not to say that if somebody came along and made me an offer I couldn't refuse on the truck camper, that I wouldn't take it. Which reminds me, and we scrolled past this question. I'll get back there for you. Let's see. Let me. I jumped ahead. That's why. Okay. Yes. So Scott, he says, I built a truck camper using one I had bought as a pattern, and am ready to purchase new white aluminum for the siding and roof. What would you recommend, and where should I purchase it? That kind of depends on where you're at, Scott. Shipping metal sheets like that can get hella expensive. All right. Now, if you're on the West Coast, there is a company in Portland, like Oswego. Hang on, I'm grabbing a sample here. In Lake Oswego, that has RV siding. They'll package it up in long packages, send it to you. Basically, they have an order form. You tell them what you need in lengthwise, and then they cut it, package it, and send it to you. The most typical kind of siding you're going to find in use for an RV is something like this. This is aluminum. It has a spray finish on it. This is painted finish, not anodized. And it uses something called a mesa pattern. So if you look at that, you can kind of see that. And if I get it just right, you can kind of see how there is the mesa, okay, and then a valley, and then a mesa, and then a valley. So this is pretty typical of what you're going to find. they make this kind of a pattern, and you can get all kinds of different spacing and different styles, um, and you'll find you know you'll find them just you can find this stuff just about anywhere really, depending upon where you're at and whether you want to have it shipped. However, by the way, that is siding off of my truck camper that I was using to find siding for it. And that happens to be a really different pattern. The size and shape of the mesa and the valleys is not a standard stock pattern like they had on this website for the company in Oregon. And I'm going to just Google it here because it just doesn't come to me. I told you I got lots of cobwebs from this sickness. Interstate Metal Fabricators is in Portland. Actually, I think it is, like I say, I think they're in Lake Oswego, which is Portland Metro. I'm not affiliated with these guys, but I have ordered a couple of parts from them. I bought some doors, replacement doors from them for a friend of mine. I was helping with a camper that he was working on several years ago. But what you might consider, Mr. Bussman, Bohannon, what you might consider is reaching out to a company that does on-site siding fabrication. So like you might find a company in your town that does steel or aluminum siding. Then a lot of times what they do is they come out with a big roll of aluminum. They run it through a die in the back of their truck. They cut it to length. Bing, bang, boom. It's there. It's done. And you might actually call around. Now, a lot of guys are going to poo-poo it. They're not going to want to get involved in it. So you're going to have to, what I would recommend is go to their shop and say, listen, I got this little project I'd like you to help me with if you're interested. I just need siding cut and put on this. Or maybe just cut, and have them cut the siding and then you take it home and put it on yourself. So that might be a way to save yourself a lot of freight. And then also having it made and shipped to you is going to be pretty expensive. At least $1 a foot. That's $1 a linear foot. Okay? Maybe a little less depending upon, you might be on the East Coast. You might find a vendor that's closer to you. You might find somebody that's close enough that you can jump in your truck and go pick it up from them. But the thing of it is try to avoid any vertical seams in the sidewall. Try to have continuous piece of aluminum from the back to the front. In that case, you might end up with needing some pieces that are 15 or 16 inches long. You may also be able to work it out to where you can have the seams on a window, right? So you can hide the seam behind a window. But you do not want a vertical seam in a wall if you can avoid it, because it will leak. Okay, and leaks are killer. So that's my advice. But yeah, you might try those things. Hope that helped. Gary C, he's going from a 33, it looks like a partial comment, 33 fifth wheel, okay. Did I miss an earlier question, Gary? Hello, he says, hello all. I'm going from a 33 fifth, oh there it is, I'm going to my 33 foot, will you 20 foot fifth wheel with no fly, all fiberglass, I'm a little bit anxious. Oh, okay, you were chatting about, and maybe we just, maybe I knew this and I just don't remember. You were looking at possibly buying a Class A, if memory serves me right. Remind me, Gare. And we'll cycle back on that. Georgia AK Dad says full-time in a truck camper storage is the issue. Truck bed is consumed by the camper. Yeah, that's true, except that you do have space in front and behind the wheel wells. Excuse me. That is usable because of the way the slide-in works. You really can't. Excuse me. I'm going to have to clear my throat here. The nasty girl is plugging me up here. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Anywho, let me go back to the comments here. What we were talking about. Tom Downey says yes, he's troubleshot it. Wiring is intact, complete from the starter to the busman box. Did you see the picture that I put up, Tom? Was that... Can you send me a picture of yours? Kevin Coop. A profound statement I heard was, your poo cannot make you sick. Generally true. All right? Your personal biome, the E. coli in your gut that's going to make you sick, you are essentially immune to it. All right? Now, your wife, your kids, all that sort of stuff, not so much. Over time, especially after living with somebody for many years, yeah, you're probably not going to get sick if you got a little bit of your wife's poo on your hand and it got in your mouth or something like that. Okay? I mean, somehow got into you. So, in general, your poo won't make you sick. It's dealing with other people's poo that makes you sick and mad and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's a matter of having become acclimated to the bugs and the bacteria in your own stomach, and those things end up in your poo. And so yeah, I mean, there's going to be people out there that are going to argue with me. Oh yeah, it will, and yeah, it absolutely will, because but in general, if you're fairly careful, it's unlikely that your own E. coli bacteria in your poo will make you sick if you somehow get it into your mouth. I don't recommend it, but it probably won't. RV Living Life, he says he has a squirt bottle of Lysol in the wet bay. Anything I need to touch, I spray. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the RV Living Life Integra Aspire. Okay, cool. Thanks for the reminder, Tim. RV Living Life, my name is Gary too. Maybe call me RVL, Gary, or something to be different. Yeah, okay. We can do that. Tom says, by the way, the flower fields are in full bloom. They absolutely are. I saw some footage this morning from space. You could see the California poppies blooming. I sure wish I was down there, maybe like Anza Borrego or down in that area. The Golden Valley in Arizona is blooming extremely hard right now. Parts of Texas, the bluebells are really breaking loose from all the rain they had a couple months ago. So yeah, the super bloom is in process. You're welcome, RV Life. I'll try to get used to calling you RVL. His problem is he's not shy, babbles on too much on lives. I like to comment on everything. Yeah, and that's fine. We're pretty good. We got a good filter here. Boy, it's getting late. Of course, I was off last week, and I've got quite a few comments still to go. So let me kind of get caught up here. Tom says, first time in a long time the tulips and daffodils are in bloom at the same time. Yeah, my daffodils are all getting ready to break. And then I was out actually yesterday and did some work in the yard because it was a nice day. It was almost 70 degrees. I guess that was Sunday. And I was out dividing some hostas that I needed to divide last year and I didn't get to. And so I was out digging up and dividing the hostas, and I noticed that some of my daffodils have got the flower bulbs on them. The flower heads are just about ready to break open. It's just been a cold, wet spring. We just haven't had any good warm weather. Yeah, too. You're down there right now. She says her mail route had most of the tulip fields. Interesting. Retired. Thank God. Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah, thanks, John, for going over and checking them out. That's really cool. Joni Portwood, I believe, has a channel too. I don't know if Joni commented back if she was doing current videos, but if you are, Joni, let me know, and I'll be wrapping things up here shortly. But next week we'll share a link to your channel, or you can go YouTube search her. She's probably, easily searchable on the tube. Two Feathers, 71-mile beautiful route with all the snow geese and swans. That's cool. So you were a rural mail carrier. That's honorable work. 71 miles a day. I bet you wore out how many vehicles? Joni says, one of the things I'm considering is the cost of tow vehicle for each choice. Good heavy duty trucks seem hard to find cheap. Yeah, just be patient, Joni. The truck market, especially used, always tends to be pretty tight. But I got a feeling that things are starting to loosen up. I was out and about today. I went over to Costco I took my brother out to get him some new shoes, and we went to Costco, and he went to Walmart. I don't like Walmart personally. But with all that said, um, you know, it was not a bad day. Sorry, trying to read comments and talk at the same time sometimes doesn't work. Scott says, thanks, TR. I found a company near me here in central Illinois who said they could cut me whatever I need. They're a metal building company. Perfect. That you're going to get metal buildings, have mesa siding, with the mesa and then the valley and the mesa. So, yeah, that's perfect. You could probably drive right over there and get it then. Ask them to palletize it, though, because the long sheets are going to hang out the ass end of your pickup, and you want to have a nice long pallet. So make sure they palletize it for you. It'll cost you a few extra bucks, but you'll get home with good, clean, straight metal. Definitely worth it. Yeah, I was talking about Joni driving around, and there seem to be a lot more used pickups on the lots around here in Pocatello today than there have been for a long time. So, and I think the chip shortage in the auto market has decreased, and so a lot of the guys that wanted to buy new trucks but couldn't were buying used and driving the used market up. But you're right, a good, reliable truck like one like Gary has. He's got one of the old Dodges from that's going to be a workhorse and still be running 20 years from now probably. That's Gary C, by the way. Cool. Okay, George A.K. Dad, 15 or 16 feet long. Yeah. Gary said, yeah, that's right, but I chickened out. I'm too intimidated for the 25-year-old RV. I was looking at Monaco's and Country Coach, stuff like that. Yeah, a 25-year-old RV, unless you really, 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 really like to do maintenance and spend money, you're probably better off with a little younger, little newer RV. in my humble opinion. Let's see here. Okay, take a picture, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Tom, yeah, if you can send a picture of it, that'll be great. We'll see what we can do for you. I will, Kevin, thanks. Joni says she is doing videos. Okay, so YouTube Joni Portwood, and go over and check out her channel too. It's so nice to have you guys here and joining me on this live stream. Tom Downey says the snow geese are also here. The U.S., a full section of them. Yeah, we've got, I noticed some here local, headed over here the other day too, and a lot of the Canadian geese are already, back. I noticed the house sparrows were back at the first of the month too, which is typical for them around here. Two Feathers wore out one postal Jeep and 3 Subarus, over 1 million miles on the road in 28 years. Wow. And then RV Living Life, Gary R. works for him. Okay. I'll try to, I'm usually pretty good about, reassociating folks with who they are and what kind of rigs they have when my head isn't like a sieve. All right. I see no further questions. We are at 8 o'clock. I think I have a sneeze coming. That's probably a good time to wrap things up. I've been wanting to do a series on how to purchase an RV. And I'm going to call on you guys to help me out next week. So next week, I want to have a discussion with you guys about how to purchase an RV, what you should and shouldn't do. If you feel like you could give me some insight and tips on things that you would look for when you're inspecting a used RV, Gary, you're probably going to have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'd love to hear from you, Gary C. And anybody else who's bought an RV or anything in the last 10 years or so. On how to purchase. I'm going to put together my standard sort of shotgun. I think this is a good starting point, and then you guys can chime in. We'll see what we can work on together, and then within the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'll get a article out on it. Unfortunately, the article that will support the video that we did 2 weeks ago on ampacity and selecting wire, I haven't got back to that. I will soon. Kevin had offered to do some editing on that, so Kevin, I'm going to reach out to you with that as soon as it's available. But it'll probably be another week or so before I get all the way back to that. I've still got some other stuff to take care of here. Gary says he's going to a 22-foot fifth wheel called an Escape, made in Canada. It's really got too cool factor, but no slide outs. Excellent. A 22-foot fifth wheel. Wow. I'm going to have to research that one. Thank you, John. Thank you so much for being here. And, yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, Tom. Good night, Gary. D. Have a good evening. Yeah, don't buy the first RV you look at. Absolutely true, RV Living Life. Good to know. Truck technician. I'll try and put together a good list. Perfect. Yeah, if you don't mind, and you could always email that to me if you're so inclined, trbolin@gmail.com, and I will give you appropriate credit in the article up on my website over at trbolin.com. Alrighty, so 8:05, we're going to call her good. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a great week. I'll be back next week. We're going to talk about the things that we think we should be thinking about when we're considering purchasing an RV. And until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Okay, peace out. Bye. Have a good night. Ba-jing.